Welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. It is Friday, December 6th, and we are getting ready for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm Ruthie Polinsky alongside Alex Shapiro, as always, and we are so excited to welcome Cam Inman from the Bay Area News Group, covers the 49ers, to preview this one for us. And Cam, I mean, maybe the only other team that's got a little bit of drama. I mean, the 49ers season has just been a roller coaster, I'm sure, for you to cover and for the fans to experience. We've had our roller coaster of sorts in Chicago as well. From your perspective, I guess, where this team is right now as they get ready for the Chicago Bears to come in, who have an interim head coach, a lot of changes, rookie quarterback. What would you say the state of this matchup is?
Two desperate teams trying to show that they have pride as professionals to battle on here and prove that they have a brighter future, because, you know, this is my 25th year covering the 49ers, and I've been saying probably for the last couple of weeks now, it might be the most underachieving team I've covered because they have so much talent. They've invested so much money into guys. Yes, there's some injuries. That's every team. But they've really been disjointed all season long, and you're catching the 49ers right now on a 3-game skid, and they lost 38-10 in Green Bay, and they just lost 35-10 in Buffalo. So they got the jet lag. They got they've been humbled a little too much, and they don't have Christian McCaffrey again, and they're not out of it, which is the beautiful thing of the NFC West, because all the teams are cannibalizing themselves. So that gives them hope with 5 games left that if they use the Bears to kind of get back on track, then they can flip around quickly next Thursday night and play the Rams. And next thing you know, we're talking about how great they are.
You mentioned, some guys being out. Brandon Ayuk has missed a large chunk of the season. Christian McCaffrey has now missed several chunks of the season.
Yeah.
But through that all, Brock Purdy's numbers seem to be down kind of across the board. How much of that is just, hey, 2 of his best playmakers are out? And how much of it is there something going on with Brock Purdy this season that just doesn't look right?
Well, last year, Brock Purdy was an MVP finalist because he put up a franchise record 4,280 yards. And he did it because McCaffrey was there every day. Trent Williams was there every day. The defense was much better. Their special teams was not the mess it is this season. It kind of really reflects the state of the entire team. Now, you're expecting an MVP type quarterback to be able to lift everybody up and make everything great. We just saw what Josh Allen did in Buffalo in a snowstorm, right? Purdy has had he's regressed a little bit in just that his greatest asset was that he's very cerebral and can diagnose defenses really well. And this season, it seems it's been a little bit off, probably more so because the defenses have adjusted, not necessarily to him, but to the Niners scheme. The receivers are not getting open, and Brock's added more mobility to his game where he's scooting out of the pocket a little bit more. He did have a shoulder injury a few weeks ago that kept him out of the Green Bay game, but he's trending that he should be full go against the Bears. In Buffalo, it was an anomaly because it's a snowstorm. He's in a blizzard. He passes for under 100 yards, loses the ball once. So I'd throw that game out. Now, the Niners know that he's their guy. He's their quarterback. When the season's over in a month, they can get going on this contract extension that'll pay him a market rate. So they don't have that concern with him. I think the reason it just hasn't clicked as much is it's a team-wide issue. It's not just that you can call it the Super Bowl hangover. You can blame injuries. They've had tragic off-field events. They've had just a lot of just weird stuff. There's been a negative vibe all throughout the year, whether it was like the contract negotiations with Ayuk and then Trent Williams and even McCaffrey in there a little bit. And then it just trickled in one thing after the other. Even after they win these games that they've won, they haven't won in a month. That game was in Tampa Bay. They come away and they're just kind of like, I remember looking at Brock when he was leaving the locker room. It's just like they're sighing like, God, we got away with that one. And it's just not hey, we're really good. We're back. So much different vibe this year from Brock and from the team.
It's funny you talk about sort of the negative vibes and energy around the team. From what we've gathered this week, funny enough, as the Bears are about to embark on a head coaching search, there's some disgruntled fans regarding Kyle Shanahan. And I'm sure you've heard sort of this, what kind of feels like a little bit of like clickbaity news. Like, what are the actual chances that the Bears would go out and trade for a guy like Kyle Shanahan?
Right.
Well, I have to get your perspective of what this narrative is like for covering the actual team that Kyle Shanahan is actually coaching right now and is one of the greatest to do it.
Yeah, I think you got to look at it from each perspective, right? From the 49ers perspective, Kyle Shanahan's still in great standing with them and ownership because he turned the franchise back into a playoff contender every year. Like I said, there's been so many things this year that have gone wrong, including the coaching hasn't been great. Not necessarily just because Kyle, but his staff. But there's been no discord among the hierarchy. I mean, the owner just adores Kyle Shanahan. So would he make a business move and appease like shareholders, like a Fortune 500 company, and say, Kyle's peaked. We need to get like the most we can out of him, change out our CEO kind of thing, right on field. I don't see them doing that. From Kyle's perspective, if he's not coaching the 49ers next year, my guess is because he needs a freaking year off because he looks exhausted. He looks like he's aged 1,000 years after 2 Super Bowl defeats. And from the Bears' perspective, I mean, is this a franchise that's going to pony up a lot of first-round draft picks and pay the man twice as much as what he's getting from the 49ers? Because he just got another extension, I believe, last year because he's signed for a few more years. The Bears don't strike me as somebody who's going to be very cavalier with their money, throwing it around for a magnificent trade like the Tampa Bay Bucks did to bring in John Gruden from the Raiders 20 years ago. I don't see that. So, but it's a beautiful topic that we can discuss in early December because there's going to, for the next few months, it's all speculation season. Could the Niners part with him? There's always that chance. It's professional sports. They've seen that there's been a lot of bad playoff losses where they can't hold leads. This season, they blew 3 NFC West games because they couldn't hold fourth quarter leads. And that's honestly the signature of the Shanahan regime is they haven't been able to finish. But I don't see them starting over with somebody new.
You mentioned the defense just hasn't been what it was in recent years. Do you think there's any regret with the kind of defensive coordinator changeover? Because it has been, Steve Wilkes was only there for a year and now it's Sorensen. Yeah. Is there any regret with the lack of continuity on that side of the ball, you think?
I don't think they had a say in that matter because it's like went from Saleh to D'Amico Ryans. Those guys each got their head coaching jobs. And then they brought in Wilkes. And I think there was obviously regret because they fired him a couple of days after the Super Bowl. He was kind of scapegoated, but it didn't seem right all season long. And then this year they promoted Nick Sorensen, who was a defensive backs coach. He played in the NFL for about 10 years as a special teamer. He's a nice guy, kind of looks like Shanahan. The defense has been terrible under him. They brought in Brandon Staley also at the start of the year. He also interviewed for the job. So everybody's like, is he the shadow defensive coordinator? But we haven't seen him. And regardless, the defense stinks under whoever's running it. And they are allowing, I did a story yesterday on this, is they've allowed 19 rushing touchdowns this season, which is tremendous. They've allowed, I believe, 8 in the past 10 quarters that Nick Bosa has not played. They allowed 3 to the Green Bay, 3 to Buffalo. They're not stopping the run down in the goal line, and that's a really major issue. If I'm going to give you a history lesson here because I've covered the Niners so long. See, I wrote a book that's about the Niners that came out. About 2011, they did not allow a rushing touchdown the first 14 games of the season. And they did that because they had Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis, great front line, great second. Everybody played together. Well, Patrick Willis walks out on the practice field yesterday. I'm like, Pat, I just wrote about you for tomorrow's story. He's like, what'd you write about? And I told him, he goes, yeah, man, if you don't have a good run defense, it's going to be a tough season. And right now, the Niners do not have a good run defense.
That might work out well for you this weekend because we don't know if the Bears are going to have a running back on the roster.
I just saw this, right? DeAndre Swift is hurt, right?
So
and Roschon Johnson.
Yeah, we haven't gotten the final injury report yet. Roschon Johnson and Swift both did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. Roschon Johnson's probably out. He suffered a concussion last week. So a lot of uncertainty when it comes to what this Bears offense is going to look like. And maybe that'll be a part of that boost, I think for this team as they kind of come in there with, Thomas Brown, it kind of feels like the guys are really rallying around him. What's kind of the dialogue for the 49ers as they talk about, facing a team with a new head coach?
Right, and I think they've obviously complimented just how the Bears have played the last few games. Right, that's kind of coach speak, but they sense that the Bears have played close games. They've given a lot of praise to Caleb Williams, and said that he's developed well. Here's what I'm going to make a prediction: that Caleb Williams is going to score his first rushing touchdown in the NFL on Sunday at Levi Stadium, because right, I'm going out on a limb. Somebody's got to score for the Bears. And the Niners have given up rushing touchdowns to, let's see, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Geno Smith won the game for Seattle by running through the 49er defense in the last minute. So they have this wide 9 defense where they kind of try to attack the quarterback from the edges, and that leaves the inside open. So Caleb Williams will have an escape route and score that way, but they're very aware of his arm talent and just his overall athletic talents. Now, does that mean that they're going to get right? Not necessarily, but Caleb Williams is catching them at the right time, because if Bosa's not playing, the Niners don't have a pass rush. They just really don't, and they don't mix it up with blitzes. It's very boring, basic, vanilla defense, and that's gotten them into a lot of trouble. Everybody's saying the nice things like they do every week about your opponent, but they don't necessarily know that those guys are hurt. So it's kind of like they just say these things and they watch the film and say, oh, that guy's not playing. All right, well, whoever plays. But that's kind of the beauty of when you have a 5-7 team against a 4-8 team. Whoever's playing is fighting for their job for next season. So it's going to be desperation to play. And so the Niners are well aware of that, what they're getting into. And, if Trent Williams is not playing at left tackle, that's a big red flag. But Jalen Moore has played there in place of him the last 2 games. He's a 4th-year guy. He's okay. He's not great, but he's gotten better. And we talked to him at his locker this week, and he's well aware of Montez Sweat. And I don't know if he's faced him before. I think he has. I asked him, I go, do you keep a scouting report, a book of the guys you've played? He goes, I do. He's like, but I never go back and look at it. Maybe it'd probably be a good way for me to go back and mark down how I did against it. And I go, no, just live in the present. It's all good, man, because now you might have another big assignment, because you got to protect Brock Purdy at all costs and get him through 5 more games this season.
I want to ask you more about that 49ers wide 9 defense and the pass rush, specifically newcomer Leonard Floyd, former Bears friend. He's played 2 games against the Bears in his post-Bears career, and he's got 2 sacks in those 2 games. He's also second on the Niners with 6.5 sacks. So I'm just curious. You said the pass rush has been lacking.
Yes.
And, there's been this weakness up the middle, but how has Leonard Floyd fit into that scheme, and what has he brought to the team specifically?
I would say, first of all, and like this has been Leonard Floyd's career, he's very durable. He's reliable. He's going to be there. So that's great on a team where everybody else is getting injured and fading away. So he's got that going for him. But from a production standpoint, it hasn't been there. It has for a few games, but he hasn't, been nearly the complement to Nick Bosa at the other defensive end spot that they need. Not necessarily that, he's not a full-time guy. He's playing about 60% of the snaps, somewhat of a pass rush specialist. We don't talk to him that often in the locker room because he's more of a quiet guy, but every time I've gone up to him, he's been great. And, when we were going into Buffalo last week, he had obviously played in Buffalo the previous year, and he had some fun things to say about Josh Allen, just called him a juggernaut and that he goes berserk on the field, and he did. So, but he's never faced Caleb Williams, so it'll be interesting to see how he does going after him. So the wide 9 is, and the Niners employed this about 5 years ago when they really started getting good, where you got your defensive ends line up really wide, and you have 2 interior guys, but it only works if you have the right 4 guys, and they have not had the right 4 guys. They revamped that defensive front this offseason. They brought in Leonard Floyd. They brought in Yetur Gross-Matos from the Panthers, but he's been banged up and he's not doing great. And then you redid the interior with Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, who was on the Browns, and then Javon Hargrave they paid a lot of money to a year ago, and he got hurt, I think, in the 3rd game of the season. So the defensive front is not that for years. That's how this whole regime is. We're building the franchise up on the defensive front. This year, rather than draft a defensive lineman, they didn't for the first time for freaking ever. They usually use a first rounder on guys. They did not, and it kind of come back to bite them because they have no depth, and there's no really menacing presence. So the Niners have lost their swagger, and I think a lot of that is because that defensive front is not as good. Fred Warner was playing MVP level the first 4 games of the season. He hurts his ankle, and he reveals to us last week that when he hurt his ankle, he actually fractured it. So he's playing on a fractured lower leg injury for the last 2 months. Kind of explains why he's only had 13 tackles the last 3 games. But it's beyond that. He's trying to cover for those around him. And it's a skeleton crew that's not good. They brought in Devondre Campbell to fill in for Dre Greenlaw while Greenlaw's recovering from an Achilles, and he's getting closer to coming back, but he won't play this week. And Devondre Campbell is just looking old and just doesn't have the coverage range, and that leaves Fred prone to playing out of position. So that's why it's a trickle down effect through the whole defense. If you don't have the front, you don't have linebackers, then your defensive backfield is younger guys, but they're hungry. They just get out of position a lot.
On the offensive side of the ball, I feel like we need to dive deeper into Christian McCaffrey, who seemingly just can't catch a break with any of this.
Hey, he just married Miss Universe, though, so let's give him a break.
Olivia, she's the girl. Listen, I think I'm just curious about sort of the energy around his longevity on that team, and how do you sort of plan for a future around a guy that can't stay on the field?
Yeah, are you wondering, did the wheels just fall off on Christian McCaffrey after this tremendous season last year? Right, he's scoring every game, he's racking up yards. I think the real big concern goes back to September when he was a pregame scratch before the Week 1 game against the Jets, and it threw off everybody's fantasy football teams. Right, everybody's like, "Wait, well, you said he might play," and then they put him on injured reserve in Week 2, and he's gone for 2 months because of what's called bilateral Achilles tendonitis, which means both Achilles are painful, and the only way to get better is resting. And McCaffrey just overtrained during the summer. Because he is maniacal about his body and a profession. He has the wonderful demeanor. He's a great pro. Now, is he healthy? Yes. He looked really good going in as Buffalo game was starting. He had a 19-yard run, 18-yard run, but on that 18-yard run, he got tripped up and he landed, like his knee kind of twisted and landed on the hard, icy surface, and so he got a PCL strain. No surgery, and it's not related to the Achilles. So it's more of like the Niners, everything's a freak injury, right? So it's more of a freak issue. And you figure, you know what, this is not bad because he can like rest that Achilles the next month or two, kind of going into the offseason. Long-term concern, none. They think they still got the guy he's got a few more years to go. John Lynch was on the radio out in San Francisco today, their general manager, praising McCaffrey for how well he's looking, that he's going to bounce back stronger than ever. And Christian wrote a farewell message kind of on Instagram, alluding to the same thing. He's going to be back smarter and better and all this. And Lynch alluded to it as, he already wrote part of his Hall of Fame speech right there. That's an excerpt from it. And it makes you think, it's like, is he a Hall of Fame running back? He had a 1,000-yard season with Carolina. He had a huge year last year at the Niners. But he also has this black mark of missing like 2 or 3 seasons because of injuries. He did in Carolina, came to San Francisco, proved that wrong, like ran really good for the last 2 years, and then this year was just banged up. So he's still relatively young. He still loves the game of football like no other. So I think he's got multiple years left. They just gave him a new contract in the spring, an extension for a couple more years. So he'll be around a couple more years. So when you're going into your fantasy draft, next August, would you take him number 1? No, but he might be a nice steal later in your first round.
Glad to hear. He's one of the most exciting players to watch. Yeah. So glad to hear that he'll be good going forward. Want to ask you about the other superstar on the offense, Deebo Samuel.
That's not a superstar anymore.
That's kind of what I'm driving at. I mean, this is a guy who seemed to be able to score from any part in the field in many phases, but he's really dropped off as a rusher specifically this season. I'm just wondering, what are you seeing there? Where has that drop off been?
There's a couple reasons. I mean, he was in 2021, they started using him in that role, and he self-dubbed himself a wide back, like a wide receiver / running back. Now when teams see him in the backfield, they know, well, Deebo's just going to run the ball wide and we can get him. And they do. And they catch up to him because he doesn't have that speed and burst to turn the corner anymore. He's become a heck of a kick returner for $30 million a year or whatever, but that's not what you're supposed to be paying him for. It's just kind of strange. Deebo's been a captain the second year. He has that intimidating kind of bully presence about him still. They just aren't getting him the ball in the open field where he can run through guys, right? That was kind of the issue. He can't get separation. That's been an issue for all the Niners wide receivers. But as Deebo's kind of regressed Juwan Jennings is a guy who's kind of come to the forefront with Ayuk out. And then Ricky Pearsall's their first-round draft pick. And he was the one that got shot like the week before the NFL season started, miraculously survives a gunshot wound through the chest, misses the first, I think, 8 games maybe. He's played in 6. But the last 3 games, he has not caught a pass. He has not been targeted, really. He's been targeted 3 times. I talked to him this week in the locker room, and he's like, it's just your perspective of life knows it's okay. We're going to get through it. Deebo's perspective is I'm still a badass and I can just give me the ball and I'm going to run through somebody. And that's great. That really can happen. But I don't know if you guys remember when the Niners played in Chicago for I think it was in 2021 and their season was on the break, right?
Week 1. That was week 1. Matty Eberflus's debut.
No, it was before. Oh yeah. Was that it? Well, their season was on the brink at some point, and Deebo caught a screen pass and ran it 70 yards down the sideline. It wasn't the rain monsoon game.
We're thinking that's 2020. That was
2022.
Yeah, there you go. And so Deebo takes off, and he's like, yeah, that's the dude that everybody expects. That's who Deebo Samuel is. We haven't really seen that year. He scored 2 touchdowns all year. He had a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Those were months ago. And I don't know if you remember. I don't know if this created waves in Chicago, but when the Niners won their last game a month ago in Tampa Bay, their kicker had missed 2 field goals. Deebo's pissed off. Actually, maybe he missed 3. And Deebo confronts him on the field and is yelling at him. And the long snapper, Tabor Pepper, Midwestern guy, he gets in Deebo's face to stick up for the kicker. And Deebo takes a swipe at his neck. And I'm like, what is going on with this team? And everyone's like, it's very unprofessional. You can't do that in public, much less on the field. And it wasn't even on the sideline. And I'm like, that's almost suspension worthy. But Deebo's really tight with Shanahan, and they didn't reprimand him whatsoever. And then I'm like, well, his name is Deebo. He's supposed to kind of be a bully and keep people in check. And about 99% of the fan base wanted to choke the kicker and long snapper anyhow at that point. But it just shows you kind of the dysfunctional downward spiral this team's been in all year. And Deebo's kind of the marquee member of that whole issue.
You talked about the Ricky Pearsall story is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I saw this great tweet that Ricky Pearsall's played in more games than Joel Embiid since the NBA season started, and it had me actually dying. Anyways, but it's a great story. He's a great kid, and it's just he looked really good in spring workouts with Brock Purdy. It's like, well, this guy's going to be an instant impact rookie. He's going to play slot. He'll be the number 3 receiver. He's going to take off, and then he had hamstring injuries, and and so that kept him out most of camp. And then he survives this guy. I mean, the whole gunshot stuff, they were having a team party that night and he was in San Francisco just getting some luggage for the season. And he gets armed robbery and he fights the attacker and gets shot. And it's just they still went ahead with the team party. And it's just kind of what do you do? It's everybody's got great Gatsby stuff and they want to have the party. And here's Shanahan decked out, which was not a great look. But Pearsall was in the hospital. He was okay. He's like, yeah, have the party. Don't stop it on my account. So it's kind of what do you do? If they won the season, yeah, it was good. They kept things going. But now that the season stinks, maybe not a great idea. I don't know. But he's a good guy. He's playing better. He's playing a lot. He's playing 2/3 of the snaps. So you will see him on the field. And it could be a Ricky Pearsall breakout game. I feel like there's just a lot of unknowns what this game is going to look like on both sides. It just kind of feels like it's, kind of a wild card of a game. So Cam, I guess without further ado, I want to hear your game pick. How do you see this one playing out?
There will be no snowballs being thrown on last Sunday when the Niners were in Buffalo and they were popping them like champagne corks after touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I know the Niner defense is playing bad, so the Bears should be able to get some good points up there. But at the same time, if the Bears are missing some offensive superstars, I think that the Niners should win 24-17 is my pick. And how confident of that I am, I'm not very confident. But I am not a homer because I picked against the 49ers each of the last 2 weeks. And I just didn't pick them to lose by 25 and 28 points. But it should be a closer game just because I think there are 2 teams kind of limping in that are kind of scrapping. And the interim coach balance is real. So the Bears will have some extra juice playing under Thomas Brown. We have a Associated Press reporter out here, Josh DeBow, and he did a analysis. He said that interim coaches are 13-11 in their debut over the last 10 years when they inherit a team that's a winning percentage of 28% or something. So that's a good thing for the Bears fans. and they're catching the Niners while they're not doing well.
Wow. Great stuff, Cam. Did you have anything else for him, Alex?
No, that's it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So if anybody's like really fascinated about the 49ers now, they can go buy my book. It's The Franchise, came out a couple months ago by Triumph Publishing out of Chicago. So go support them, buy a local book, and get off your phones. That way we can do it.
Love it. Might have to add it to the Christmas, Hanukkah shopping list.
There you go. Right? You know a 49er fan somewhere in your life. Get them a book. Let's go.
I'm talking about for me.
Oh, okay. That's good. I'm going to
Levi
send you a burrito too. What?
Levi Stadium is enough reason to root for the 49ers.
You like Levi Stadium?
I love that stadium. Best
Really?
media meal situation. Like,
yeah, they've done really well with it, in fact. But the worst stadium meal situation far and away is Chicago.
Oh, for sure.
It's unbelievable, like how bad I'm not a foodie or picky, but it is one of the only stadiums I have to make sure I bring my own food into, and I'm not like a healthy guy. It's just like, give me a potbelly sandwich on the walk over or something. Are you kidding me?
It has gotten better.
Okay.
It's the Kevin Warren effect, we believe.
Oh, great. Okay. Hey, I did have my binoculars stolen in the Soldier Field press box 2 visits ago, which is a very rare thievery among press corps. So that was weird.
That's outrageous.
Right? But the Bears didn't seem to care. They didn't refurbish me any new ones. So.
Yeah, that sounds about right too. Yeah. All right, Cam, great.
This is my binocular revenge game. That's what's going to happen Sunday. So.
I love it. Make sure you have those binoculars around your neck. Don't let them out of your sight this week when the Bears media is in town. Great stuff, Cam. Thank you so much. Have fun at the game on Sunday.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. Thanks again to Cam Inman. Buy his book. He is covering the 49ers for the Bay Area News Group. Been covering the team for 25 years. Sounds pretty down. Alex, I did not think he was going to pick the Niners after listening to him talk. And sure enough, he picks the Niners
by a touchdown.
Whoa. So that was interesting, but great stuff. I mean, really knows his stuff. So that was real cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Great insights about what's going wrong on that offense, what's going wrong on that defense, just what's going wrong with that organization, period. Because it's surprising. This is an organization that has been at the top of the NFC for a long time.
Yeah. And you watched the Lions last night and you're sitting there being like, they have 13 guys on IR and they are playing like you would never know the way that they're playing. So you just think about like a well-coached team and the way that you're able to get the most out of your roster. And I don't know if that has to do with the way the rosters are built, et cetera. I'm not a talent scout necessarily. And when you look at the depth and all those sorts of things, but it is interesting and you can maybe sort of see some of that frustration brewing from the fan base around the way that the team is being coached. As you mentioned, lots of assistant turnover, but that's what happens when you win. So got to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe the 49ers will find a way to deal with it. I'm just going to dive into my prediction.
Okay, go for it.
A lot is being made of Christian McCaffrey being down, Jordan Mason being down, who has been really phenomenal leading that running back room for most of the year. And it's like, it's Isaac Guerrero and Kyle Juszczyk. But if I know anything about Kyle Shanahan, it is that he typically finds a way to get a running game working no matter who he's got back there, right? I mean, he's had so many different running backs over the past few years. A lot of those guys have had success. And for as much as Cam talked about the 49ers run defense struggling, and I believe it will be an opportunity for Caleb Williams to maybe score that touchdown, I'm going to buy that ticket. I love that, by the way. The Caleb Williams rushing touchdown ticket. I kind of love that. And I might, as soon as we hop off, look into that market.
He's been the leading rusher for the Chicago Bears. Like
absolutely.
2 weeks.
Thomas Brown has dialed up the design run. So I love that. Putting a pin in that.
Baker says plus 280.
Ooh, that's it. That's it. Feels like it should be more. Anyways, I think Guerrero and Juszczyk will be able to get it done. I feel like Brock Purdy will be able to get it done, against a defense. The Bears have kind of struggled lately. Let's just be honest. They have not been the elite group that we think. And we talked about it earlier. We talked about it on Wednesday. The Bears had their get right game opportunity and they were not able to make good on it. This feels like the get right game at home. Poor team, struggling team. Yes, the Thomas Brown bump is real. Everybody recognizes that. I don't think it's going to be enough for the Bears to get in that win column. So I'm picking the Niners. I'm going to pick the Niners to cover, but not by much. The last time I checked, it was a 3.5-point spread. I'm going to go San Francisco 49ers 27, Chicago Bears 23. The Niners just cover.
It's good. It's a good analysis. I'm struggling with this one because I don't have a ton of confidence in what the Chicago Bears are going to look like, even with the interim head coach boost. I also don't think we all watched the 49ers play Buffalo. That was not pretty. So I don't know. And again, it was in the snow. It was, on the road, a lot of circumstances. So I do wonder if this is a team that is desperate and playing for something. Like, they are not out of it, And so I think that's sort of the mentality that I am really battling with between these two sides, because I do think the Bears offense is going to continue this trajectory upward. But let's not forget what this Bears offense looked like in the first half against Detroit. I mean, we're like, that's another part of this whole thing, is these slow starts. Like, that is not going to fly. Is that Stacy King?
That might have been Stacy King cameo. I'm not
Stacy!
sure. I didn't really see. You got a better look at him than me.
Tell him to come back in, Edgar.
Stacy King, give me the hot sauce.
I need his Bears pick.
Take a listen to the. Right now. Should I see if that was Stacy King real quick?
I don't. It was Edgar's out there. He's coming. Stacy
King.
We need your Bears.
King, would you like to
show
the Bears 49ers pick on the Charter podcast presented by St. Xavier University?
Of course, I like the Bears to win. But 49ers, they're struggling this year. So, where they playing at?
They're playing at San Francisco.
I got to go 49ers, man. On the road, in front of their home crowd. Bears still trying to figure it out offensively. But I want Caleb to do well, though.
All right.
Yeah.
We're on the same board. We're all on the same page. Thank you, Stacy. CHSN, you never know who's going to pop in. That's Stacy King, the voice of the Chicago Bulls. Give me the hot sauce.
I don't think he knew it was me, but I love that man so much, and I haven't seen him, and now I'm about to run into work, and hopefully I get to catch him. But I love that so much, Stacy King. I mean, wow, that was awesome. My pick is that I am, and this might be a little Homer bias here, but I'm okay with that, and I'll own that. I do really want to see Thomas Brown succeed. I do. I am rooting for him. So I'm actually going to pick the Bears to win 24-23. And I don't feel great about it. Sure don't. You can see it in my face. You can hear it in my voice. Don't feel great about it. But I do think that the offense will hopefully be able to put some things together. My concern and why I don't feel great about this is we have no idea what this defense is going to look like. I know that Eric Washington called plays during the preseason. He called plays in 2018. I just don't know what that's going to look like. And this defense has had some flaws. I said this on the Big Pro Football Show yesterday. I know we're all giving, Caleb Williams a lot of praise because he's leading these game-winning drives, but the reason that he's having to lead these game-winning drives is because the defense is giving up points late. So that needs to stop. And I just think there are a lot of adjustments that need to be made. I think obviously the run defense has not been great, but the 49ers don't have any running backs. So, there's a lot of, there's room for the Bears to pull out a win here. And I think the reason I'm also so rooting for these Bears this weekend is because if they don't win this weekend, it's going to be really hard to pick them at any point the rest of the season. So let's go Thomas Brown. Let's go Caleb Williams. Let's go Montez Sweat. There's going to be some opportunities to get to the quarterback here, it sounds like. So I'm rooting for these players because they've been really, dealing with some heartbreak this season, and I want them to not end this season on a sour note. So that's my game pick.
I love it. I'm into it. You know what? Sometimes you just got to go with your Kishkis. We went the Kishkis last week.
I think I'm going against my Kishkis right now. Like this is why I'm just a little like just feeling a little not great about that pick, but it's okay. And at least I'm owning it. And I don't know. And also I have a lot, but I'll leave it at that. That's where I'm going to leave it. Looks like there's going to be sort of a different game operational system on the headset. What does that look like? So, and I know everyone isn't pleased with how it was going before, but making these changes at this point in the season, is that really a great recipe for success? We'll see how it goes. And I don't know if the coaches really know how it's going to go until they're on the headset. So
it's a tough thing to do in the last month of the season.
Right. So, let's see how it goes. I'm excited. I'm ready for it.
I'm ready for it too. It'll be an exciting game. Even if it's the battle of the third string running backs. There's still a lot going on. Oh, we got another
visitor.
Another visitor.
All right, it's time to go.
This is an in-demand little room.
Alex Shapiro, great stuff as always. Thank you to our viewers, our listeners. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Bears in San Francisco. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for listening to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. And also, shout out to Stacy King. Surprise.
Greatest cameo guest picker of all time. This might need to be a thing. We might need to bring in more cameo guest pickers.
Unbelievable. Yeah. All right, that's going to do it, everyone. Have a great weekend.